Hi, my name is Kristen and welcome to No Copay Educations. Today I'll be discussing what a pharmacy technician is, how to register online to take the exam, and what resources I use to pass the exam within 7 days, so stay tuned. So what is a pharmacy technician? Well, they have multiple roles, but their main role is actually to aid the pharmacist. Currently, I'm a pharmacy technician and I've worked for 3 years. So what I've done is that I've worked with drive-through, helped with the checkout, helped count and dispense the medication, helped with inventory, and then any other small tasks that the pharmacist needs you to do. So in 2016, the average hourly rate for a pharmacy technician was about $15, and this can range from whatever company that you decide to work for. So I think I started around like $11 or $12 when I started out, since I was only a trainee. And the difference between a trainee and a licensed pharmacy technician is that a trainee, you don't have to take the test. So you can just start working for about 2 years before you have to take the exam. And this varies for different states. Since I work both in Texas and in Missouri, so in Missouri, you're allowed to renew your trainee license whenever it expires, and you don't really have to take the PTCB exam. But in Texas, you can only renew it once. And then after your second year, you have to take the exam in order to continue working as a pharmacy technician. So I know I've mentioned what PTCB is, and it stands for the Pharmacy Technician Certification Board. And so the benefit of actually taking this exam is that you get a higher payroll, and you're deemed as more qualified by the Pharmacy State Board. And so I'll just show you how to register for the exam. So first off, you'll have to go onto the website, the PTCB exam, and you'll want to click on the CPhT certification, which is the Pharmacy Technician Test Certification. And so the qualifications in order to take this exam is that you must have a high school diploma, you must disclose any criminal record, you must comply with all PTCB certification policies, and the passing score is a 1400. So before I actually started studying for the exam, I had no idea what to expect. And so the test actually ranges from a score of 1,000 to 1,600. And the passing score you need is a 1,400. So the process is pretty easy. You do everything online. And so first off, you'll have to do a online background check. And for me, since I didn't have any red flags, it went through pretty quick. And so I was able to select a testing center and time that I wanted to take it. And one thing that I did not know was that you have to have 2 forms of ID when you appear at the testing center. So for me, I was lucky because I had my driver's license and my student ID, which worked because they just needed your legal name printed on some sort of identification. So I remember that the guy behind me, he had his driver's license and his credit cards, which worked as a form of identification. And make sure it has your legal name on it too. So what is on the exam? There's multiple categories, but here are the main topics. They have law and regulation, medication safety, pharmacology, quality assurance, and sterile and non-sterile compounding. And so before taking this exam, I really didn't have much experience with any of these topics. I knew some of the top 100 drugs from working in retail from my past 3 years, but besides that, I didn't really know any laws besides the OSHA law, which is the work safety. I knew some medication safety guidelines, but I really didn't know anything about sterile and non-sterile compounding because that's mostly pharmacy, like hospital pharmacy. Hey guys, so I'm going to go ahead and tell you my story. So I originally studied the second week of May. This was after I studied for 2 of my finals, and I was trying to find a time that I could take the test before I went home after school. And so I gave myself about 2 weeks to study. This was in between me packing up all the stuff in my dormitory and working at the same time, so it was kind of difficult for me to study, so I think I technically studied just for a week. So after I registered online, I think they give you a deadline to take the test within a month, and so I decided to take the test after the first initial week that I gave myself to study to sign up to take the test. So when you get to the testing center, they do require 2 forms of ID. I brought my driver's license and my student ID, and also on the test you're allowed to use a calculator. This calculator is actually built in onto the software, so you don't really get a physical calculator. You have about an hour and 30 minutes to answer 90 questions, and I thought this was perfect time because I finished after I think about 30 minutes. But I did stay the whole 90 minutes just to check all my answers because I was really nervous. So like I said before, everything's done online. You are giving a laminated notebook, which you're allowed to write with an expo marker. So after exam, I was given a preliminary score report, which told me if I passed or failed. It wasn't really an official score, but it did tell me if I did pass. I passed with a 1437, so that means that I only passed by 37 points. And remember guys, that's all you need. So I was really excited that I did pass, and I'm going to go ahead and give you guys some study tips that I wish I received before I took the exam. So tip number 1, I suggest that you should be able to recognize both the brand and the generic name. This was very important for the test because this was the topic that I was most weak on. I'll show you my score report later. I only scored a 50% in that section, and I wish I studied more on that. So a tip I would give to you guys is to create mnemonics. So for example, lorazepam and Ativan, I would create the mnemonic LA to remember that they both went with each other. So a mnemonic is a device, it's a memory device that you can use to help retain information for the long run. So my second advice is to eliminate. So my rule of thumb is that if you're able to eliminate down to 2 question stems, you're on the right track, because by then you'll have a 50-50 shot of getting the answer right. My third tip is to evaluate your weak points and to make them into your strengths. So I knew that both law and pharmacology were going to be my weak points because I didn't really learn any law in my undergrad or in the pharmacy. So I had to learn this on my own. Same with pharmacology. I only knew roughly about the top 100, but I think the test requires you to recognize at least the top 200. And so being able to focus on those areas before taking my test, I think it really helped me pass. And my tip number 4 is that luck. Like I said before, I passed only by 37 points, and without those points, I would be studying to retake the exam. I would consider myself not smart, but a good test taker. So this is one tip that I would give to you is just learn how to study, what method would be the best way to for you to retain information. So for me, I'm more of an audio and visual learner. I use highlighters. So I really like YouTube because it's both auditory and visual, which are 2 of my strengths that I use to study. And so so you guys could be more tactile, visual, audio. Just learn what your study method is and go from there. And then tip number 5, I would suggest that you would work at least for a year before you take the exam, because most of the information I learned was on the job. So I currently work in retail. I picked up the top 100 drugs just from working. You learn about the fast movers, you learn about which drugs need to be refrigerated, all that sorts of stuff. So I think that experience really did help me on this exam, and I'm trying to imagine not working, and I think it would be 10 times harder to take the exam if you didn't have prior work experience. So in my inbox, I did receive an email, and here is what I received. I received a passing score, and then in the score report, they actually show you a breakdown of how many questions you missed and under which category. So as you can see, I did really well in the pharmacy quality assurance section. I did pretty well in the pharmacy law and regulation. Medication order and filling process, I did pretty okay. And then every other section I did I did pretty well too. So like I said before, I really did struggle with the pharmacology for technicians, and you can see that I only got about half that section right. And I think this tool is helpful because whether you pass or fail, it's something that you can brush up on, and like increase your knowledge as a technician. And for all of you guys who did not pass the first time around, remember that it's not the end of the world. You can retake the exam. I think from what I read on the website, you have to wait about 3 months before you can retake. I would just example, if I did fail the exam and if I didn't get those 37 points, I know that I would have to learn more about pharmacy information system usage and application, because I only got 4 questions out of 8. I would brush up on my knowledge for pharmacology. I would try to study more about medication safety, and from there, definitely I'll see a boost in my score. Okay, so here are some of the questions that I made myself that may be on the PTCB exam. So this is an example of a pharmacology question. The question is, what generic drug is most similar to the brand name Reglan? A, B, C, or D? Go ahead and take some time to think about the question and then click play whenever you have your answer. Did you get A? So this was the most critical thinking type of question that was on the PTCB exam that did stump me, and I just wanted to have an example just for anybody who's starting to study or has to retake the exam, just to have a refresher. So the exam, they require you to recognize both the generic and the brand name. See, in the question stem, they give you the brand name, and then the answer stem, they give you the generic name. So from the generic name, you have to be able to recognize what the brand name is of that generic. So for example, question A, they have Nebutone, which you have to know it's Reflend, which is an NSAID, which is a non-steroid like inflammatory medication. The next one is Terrazoside, which is the brand name Hytrin, which is used for benign prostate hyperplasia. C, estradiol, it's also called Estrace, and it's used for women who have menopause. And then lastly, answer D, it's levothyroxine, also known as Synthroid, and it's used for so hormone replacement for thyroid. So this was one of the most trickiest questions I can think of. And after that, there's like a lot of math questions that I've heard from forums that I think the math questions are worth the most points on the exam. So I think this is how I passed, but I'm not really sure how the score breakdown works. So this is an example of a stoichiometry question. A patient is going to receive 500 milliliters of D5NS over the next 6 hours. The administration set drop factor is calibrated to 10 drops per milliliter. Based on the order, what will the flow rate be set to? So go ahead and try solving this. Did you get it right? The answer is A. My work is down below, so if you have any questions, go ahead and comment below or email us at nocopaytutorials@gmail.com. So this was one type of math that I was not familiar with at undergrad or before in high school, and it's called alligation. So an alligation is also known as a tic-tac-toe type of math. You use calculations based on how much you need to know of each mixture to make a desired product. And so a trick that I found was that on the top left side, you'll have the high percent concentration of the solution. On the bottom left, you'll have the lower percent of the concentration. In the middle, you'll have the desired concentration that the doctor has prescribed. And then from there, you'll do some subtraction. You'll create a fraction, multiply with the total volume, and then you'll find the desired volume you need of each percentage. So here's an example question. An order for 240 milliliters of 56 solution has been asked for. In solution, you have 70% and 50% solution you can use to make the 56% solution order. How much of each order solution will you need to make 240 milliliters of the new strength? Go ahead and take some time to solve this question. In the next slide, I'll show you the steps of how to solve this and the answer. So, did you get it right? In order to find the 14, you'll see at the bottom right, you'll subtract 70, subtract 56 to get 14. To get the 6 on the upper right side, you'll subtract 50, subtract 56 to get 6. You'll just use absolute values. Don't worry about any negative values. From there, you'll create a fraction with the total amounts given. So 6 plus 14 is 20. Using the fraction, you'll create 6 divided by 20, and then you'll multiply with the desired total volume that you'll need in order to get 72 milliliters of the 70% stock solution. You'll do the same for the bottom, so you'll take 14 divided by 20 times 240 milliliters to get 160 milliliters of the stock solution. And in order to check your math, you can add up the solutions. So you'll take 72 plus 168 to get 240 milliliters, which is the correct answer because that is the order that the doctor has prescribed for the new strength of the 56% solution. And so other things that you'll need to know for the exam, you'll need to know the Roman numerals, the allegations, which we did beforehand, calculating discounts and drug prices, ratio, fraction, proportions, drug calculations, measurement and temperature conversions, and flow rate and intravenous calculations. All of these can be found on the resources that I use to study for the exam, which is up next. So what resources did I use in order to pass the exam? Well, I use this website called the Union Step Prep, and this was very helpful because it's all free. They provided study guides, practice tests, flashcards, and a discussion forum for anybody who was taking the exam and had any questions that they want to throw out to others to talk about. They also provided tutors, but this was an extra charge and I didn't really use the service. Next I used was Quizlet. So again, this is a free resource unless you want to pay to upgrade your account. So I had a free account and I had no problem with it. And I would pretty much type in any subject that I was struggling on. Like I said before, I was struggling a lot with pharmacology, so I would type in top 200 drugs and just study that flashcard list almost every day, trying to learn 15 drugs a day just to make sure that I was familiar and then I could recognize it on the exam. Other things that I looked into was common pharmacology law and sterile compounding. Next, I use this website called pharmacytechtest.com, and I use this because, like I said before, I was struggling a lot with the top 200 drugs. And so this website provided a quiz that you could use to test, and then you could just go through and then click through the answers to find the correct one. Then lastly, I use YouTube. It's obviously for free, and you can type in any topic or subject that you wanted to learn about. I use this a lot to learn about how to solve for allegations, what the exam was actually about, since I had no idea. None of my friends really had to take it since they were all up in Missouri and they could just renew their training license. And they have a lot of good resources, such as, I remember I found this one video that went through all of the top 200 drugs, and I would listen to it before I fell asleep. So if you have any questions, go ahead and email us at nocopaytutorials@gmail.com. Comment below what other topics you want to learn about, and we'll see you soon. Thanks, bye.